Hey everyone, it's Adam here. Want to apologize for the delay in this episode. I happen to live in Los Angeles, where we were affected by those wildfires. Everyone's okay on our end, so thanks for your kind words and your best wishes. If you're looking to help out, consider giving to the American Red Cross or giving at your local church, or perhaps join a rogue paramilitary organization funded by a billionaire. Here's the episode. Enjoy. Welcome to the Mobile Armored Podcast Show, the podcast that transforms into a mid-80s serial killer. My name is Adam Moore, alongside my co-host and best friend, PJ McNerney. How's it going, PJ?
I'm doing well. I look forward to unpacking that serial killer comment at the end of the episode.
Indeed.
I have to give a general mea culpa.
Okay.
Kind of from us to our listenership, because I posted not too long ago, and it's an assertion we've made several times on this podcast, that regarding the identity of who constructed T-Bob.
Mm-hmm.
The UK comic letters section said it was Alex Sector, which I guess is just bullshit, because it's confirmed in the cartoon in episodes not too far off from here that it was in fact Scott. So
Interesting.
Scott built T-Bob. Now, I would love to explore this in a later episode, but this really indicates how much of a genius Scott is, as well as how incredibly sad and lonely a boy must be to construct his own robot companion / nanny. So we'll save that.
Okay, well, we're just going to put a pin in that, but I will just take issue with you calling him a genius. Well, it is a genius that he's able to construct an autonomous robot with its own AI. I would say there are many issues with T-Bob that make the genius title a bit troublesome.
Fair. And that's why we'll explore this a little bit more when we get to it.
All right. Well, we are diving into episode 29 of Mask, A Matter of Gravity. Firecracker is destroyed in a battle with Venom, and Hondo gets a new replacement vehicle, Hurricane, in the end. In a brief note that Hurricane was called Night Stalker in this episode.
I love how they telegraph the ending of this, which is like, new toy.
Yep. So you're going to get a new toy, kids. And initially, we're going to name it after a serial killer. So we'll get to that. So, anyways, we open on a train, yet again, barreling down the tracks. I wonder if Matt invested in this one. And we're just outside Philadelphia. And did you notice that the two engineers sound just like Brad and Matt?
I didn't notice until you pointed it out to me. And like, I was like, you're right. Like, they 100% are their voices. And so I was wondering, were the voice actors just kind of tired of making new voices up?
Maybe.
Were they potentially getting some pushback regarding how bad their Japanese characters were last episode?
Uh-huh.
Because they were bad. And it's like, you know what? We're going to go vanilla at this point in time and just fall back on what works.
Suddenly, a red ray shines down on the train, and it basically starts melting. And the two conductors run out of the train.
So I don't know if you had this concern, and we're going to find out it's a gravity gun in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they running out into the path of that gravity gun, which is currently crushing metal so much it's melting.
Right.
But they're briefly exposed to it. Like, wouldn't they be pulped?
Yeah, it's a great point. And we do see a character later on struggling against the gravity. So I'm kind of confused about how it actually works. If you can crush a multi-ton train engine, does it work on organics different than it works on metal?
It's a good question. I mean, we'll see evidence of it working on metal and lasers.
It's a gravity ray that only works on metal and lasers.
And circumstantial evidence that it works on coal, which is
indeed. Yep.
which is carbon, which is one of the major elements that we're made up of.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens.
There's an interesting transition in this that I really liked a lot, where they had a shot of the train, it being crushed, and then they zoom back as if it's a news report, which is how we're brought basically the Tracker Mansion. I was like, you know what? This is a cool transition. Like, you don't
Yep.
see it a lot. It's kind of subtle, but it actually works really well.
Meanwhile, at the Tracker Mansion, Scott's just chilling out on a green couch, watching the smallest TV I have ever seen. And we grew up in the 80s and we saw some little TVs. This is a very small TV. Surely Matt has the money to pay for something bigger for Scott. Then again, he's always in the same pair of clothes. And in fact, did you notice in this shot, Scott has like patches on his knees as if the pants have been mended.
I love this. I did notice that, and I thought of Matt basically like scolding and be like, Scott, small TVs and patch pants builds character. Besides, I heard you made fun of some kids last episode for being poor at the end of it. So time for you to feel like what that's like.
Quick question, PJ. Who do you think sewed the patches on the pants?
I mean, it's either Scott or T-Bob, because Matt and Gloria did not do that.
Yeah, it's totally Scott. Scott absolutely was forced to sew the patches on his own pants. And I'm not actually sure if Matt even told him to. It's just that his knees were getting holes in them. And so Scott had no choice but to mend his own pants.
I wonder where Scott got the cloth for that. Did he have another pair of pants he had to sacrifice? Or did he like cut up one of Matt's old suits?
Oh boy, that's bad news. Well, the TV news is showing the story about the mysterious crushed train. And Scott gets like really excited by it. He runs out of the room to tell Matt. And we sort of see a shot of T-Bob bringing Scott his lunch. And as Scott slams the door open, T-Bob gets smashed by the door. And Scott just keeps on going. Roy Batty moment number one.
Roy Batty, 100%. Like,
does not care. Well, we find Matt and Hondo playing chess in the library. And they're both wearing suits. What's up with that?
I kind of wondered about this. Like, I had sort of like said Matt's always wearing his blue suit. That's like his leisure suit, basically, like just how he relaxes. And maybe Hondo had just gotten back from teaching.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But then I was like, guys,
quote unquote teaching.
Yeah, teaching. Yes, right. Quote unquote teaching. I was like, guys, come on, take off the jackets, kick back, have a scotch, maybe. Like, enjoy yourselves.
Matt's like, this is the game of kings. You must wear a suit and tie. So Scott comes running in and he drags them into the computer room to show them the news story about the train. And we learned that the only thing that got taken was coal. So Scott wants to know if Matt is going to look into the mystery. Now, do you think Matt suspected Venom was involved, or was he just bored and wanted to get into the action?
So if I had to take a guess, I actually thought he had investments in the train.
Okay.
Because that seems to be his, like, there seems to be three prime motivators. Venom easily, the World Peace Association, or, those folks.
Peaceful Nations Alliance.
Yeah, the Peaceful Nations Alliance, like, asking him, or if he has an investment. He gets so pissed. So I kind of thought, given the sort of connection to the last episode's train, it's like, hey, we want to try and bring the electric train here. So I can imagine having a significant interest in trains, like literal interest. So, and there's a few episodes ahead where he'll get involved without direct proof of Venom. I also think there's a case to be made that he's just losing the chess match against Hondo and wants to save face by, we gotta go.
Well.
Nothing was taken from the train except coal, tons of coal. And then they cue that shot of the train with empty coal bins. What was else on that train besides coal?
Right.
I just wish there was like a line like, despite carrying much more precious cargo like fanny packs, only the coal was stolen.
Well, think about what would be on those trains in the 1980s, like Teddy Ruxpins.
Yeah.
Nintendos. Spandex.
Sanka. It was coal and Sanka.
Oh, thank goodness they only took the coal. So Matt asks Scott, why do I have the distinct feeling you think you're going along? My answer is, because you bring him to every dangerous investigation, Matt. That's why.
So it's a totally reasonable assumption.
Scott's response, though, is that he has to do a report on money and that one of the U.S. mints is in Philadelphia, so he could go there and do research. Matt says, not bad. And he looks at Hondo and they both nod.
It's a decent argument from Scott.
I get how many other kids, though, at Scott's school are traveling to Philly to do research for their I'm sorry, what is it? A report on money.
Do you wonder like what Scott's first couple of reports on money might sound like? Like he gets up in front of the class and be like, money. We have a lot of it. Like a lot of it. Like one time I had to research buying a new yacht with our money because the first one got burned. Do you know how hard it is to buy a yacht? My dad didn't like the yacht I bought, so he made me research and buy another one. Then he said it wasn't worth his time to return or sell the first yacht. So now we use it on our private lake, which we bought with our money. So much money. Any questions? Like,
I have a question. Why can't you afford any other outfit?
my dad says it builds character.
The teacher asked to see him after class.
They have a special meeting with Matt afterwards. And Matt's like indignant, like, what? Was something factually incorrect about it?
Well, sir, you can't come in and force me to change your son's grade. It's not like you own the school. I do now.
It's a public school. I bought the municipality.
Oh, boy. Well, Scott's super happy because he's going on a mission. So he runs out of the computer room. And as he does, the door smashes T-Bob a second time. Another Roy Batty moment. And also, as we'll see, T-Bob gets trashed like multiple times in this episode.
He would be fully within his right to go ape shit if he needed to.
Well, cut to the scene of the train accident. Matt and Hondo, they just stroll right up. No police stop them. Just two strangers are allowed to wander into an active crime scene.
100%. I thought the same thing. And I was like wondering if the chief called ahead and just be like, look, two guys are coming in. Let them in. One of them's a major investor in the line. You have to let him look at this.
Let the guy in. Trust me. You don't want trouble with him. So in the investigation, we see that you would need a lot of trucks to steal all that coal, but there are no tracks. One of the engineers thinks it's aliens from some planet, quote, where they don't got enough coal. And that engineer was fired for being drunk. Again.
So I think it's the railroad's fault for letting Jerry talk to anyone. Although I don't think he got fired. I think Matt asked the railroad company to fire him because he keeps drinking and talking about aliens. And his response is like, nope, longtime union man. Can't get rid of him.
T-Bob, in looking at the crushed train, says, whoever was driving this thing will have to be retrained. And the dad jokes begin.
This episode's replete with them.
Sadly. T-Bob is told to, quote, use your chemical sensors and search for signs of coal. So T-Bob has chemical sensors now?
Yeah, we haven't seen this before, so I guess Scott had them installed. Like, but why? Like, I don't know. Was there some raccoon and they had to try and track it with its urine? And so, like, Scott basically, like, installs these chemical sensors to try and, like, suss out the ammonia that's there.
Here's my question. At what age did Scott build T-Bob?
I don't know, because like he's supposed to be what, 10, somewhere between 10 and 13, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, because Scott might have night terrors or do sleepwalking and wets himself, and so to put the chemical sensors in T-Bob so he could find Scott when he wanders off.
Are you saying he has deep-seated trauma from nearly dying time after time, like that he might revisit it in his nightmares?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like
when he fell off the cliff after trying to like keep T-Bob from being stolen by Venom?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yep.
Okay.
But instead of seeing a therapist, he builds a chemical sensor into his robot.
I like the idea of him trying to go to a therapist, and he tells him all the stories, which the therapist doesn't believe and thinks he's just made up bullshit, and tells him to stop lying. So he's like, I can't go to see this therapist anymore.
Well, Matt wouldn't not to go off on a tangent here, but Matt would not let Scott tell the truth about anything to a therapist. So if Scott does go to a therapist, Matt has paid this therapist off. Because there's some stuff that Scott would say that therapist, as a mandated reporter, would have to bring to the authorities. Well, let's go back to the case here. They do find traces of carbon with T-Bob's chemical sensors.
They mention that it isn't coal, it's carbon. So coal is carbon. And for what we're about to discover in terms of what's happened to the coal, The writers are trying to be really clever here, but they're not.
Right.
And I kind of wondered if from last episode, the writers got the note, hey guys, these jokes are going over the kids' heads. Can you make them more accessible?
And they did their best, but failed.
Right.
Well, Scott and T-Bob do find the carbon, but turns out to be a giant diamond.
Dun, dun, dun.
And T-Bob says, we're rich. We'll never have to work again. Can we talk about this? Does T-Bob not know they're wealthy, or is this some sick joke made at the expense of people for whom this diamond truly would be life-changing?
It's 100% the latter. Like, T-Bob's become so accustomed to money that he's just gotten into lording it over other people. That's like, how else is he going to find his joy?
Matt and Hondo show up to investigate, suddenly wearing their mask uniforms, by the way. Were they wearing them under their suits?
God, it would be so hot if they were. Pennsylvania in the summer is not known to be a temperate climate.
I hope they have good deodorant. Or maybe they don't sweat because they've been irradiated and their sweat glands no longer function. Now, Hondo makes a joke about wearing that diamond as a wedding ring, and Matt laughs really uncomfortably.
So uncomfortably. It's like, hey, you're a married man, Matt. Time to start cleaning up your stuff. I do reserve the right to return at this moment later in the episode.
Okay. Well, Matt uses Thunderhawk's computer and finds out that the diamond was made from coal that was compressed by some unnatural source. Meanwhile, T-Bob falls off the diamond, complaining that something's jamming his balance gyros.
Or he fell off the diamond because Scott keeps fucking with the circuitry.
Yep.
Like, which seems more likely.
Much more likely. But it turns out it's some sort of a gravity well. Matt uses Spectrum and discovers the source of the gravity energy. And he and Hondo take off in pursuit. Scott wants to come, naturally, but Matt tells him to wait back at the destroyed railroad, also naturally.
Scott, I want you to wait by a derailed train that was hauling coal and is now possibly leaking toxic fluids. Like,
oh, Dad. Can I come after the extremely dangerous gravity beam? Nope. Toxic fluids for you, son. Matt comes upon a clearing with like dozens of these giant diamonds.
mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, Hondo encounters Vanessa driving a truck full of the diamonds. Jackhammer appears. We have a firecracker jackhammer fight. Hondo backs up and somehow gets caught between two trees. Like, is this meant to be an excuse as to why it will be better for Hondo to get an upgrade?
Maybe he was like tired of firecracker. He's like, this F-150 is just not my thing anymore.
Right.
Like, maybe I could just back it up over here and we can just get rid of it.
I mean, for a vehicle capable of such destruction, for it to get caught between two trees is very sad.
It is. It really is. So I kind of agree. I think it might have been a purposeful jamming. I really dig that prior, though, to Firecracker transforming, if we're to believe that it's, Mask is keeping its identity secret, it's just an F-150 in the road. So Jackhammer comes tearing out from behind the truck, fully transformed, to just start shooting. And I kind of wonder, like, is this standard Venom operating procedure? Like, just destroy all F-150s you find?
Well, you talked about this in a much earlier episode, but the idea that Mask hiding in plain sight just creates so many mass casualty events as Venom takes out any vehicle that might be.
Imagine the insurance rates on those vehicles, basically. Like all Ford F-150s, like all
all
big
Chevy Camaros.
All Chevy Camaros, like, insurance rates through the roof.
Yeah.
Hondo's taken on 2 Venom agents by himself.
He is.
And I think this is on point for him. Like, it's hard for me to believe anyone besides Gloria doing this, unless it's Dusty stealing a book from a mysterious white Bedouin from Venom.
Dusty loves stealing books. Matt says he's going to, quote, take the elevator to pursue Venom. Ugh, a dad joke there as he takes off into the skies. Hondo uses Blaster to knock down one of the trees that was keeping Firecracker stuck. And meanwhile, Scott and T-Bob are scootering along. Did you notice that the music sounded like Whip It by Devo?
I did. And it was definitely like in that Devo universe.
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe slightly closer to like Dare to Be Stupid,
Uh-huh. Yep.
which is itself a Weird Al parody of Devo.
Yeah.
But yes, 100%.
Hadn't heard that music before in Mask, to be honest. So a little odd there. Suddenly, all these animals and birds come running up behind them. And T-Bob says, "What is this? The road to Noah's Ark?" And T-Bob's been getting very biblical of late. Does he sense his end is nigh?
I kind of wonder. I mean, he's growing as a sentient being, and he's attempting to answer the question, why am I here?
Right.
And so, like, I wonder if he's been reading a lot of religious texts, like ones on suffering, or why do bad things happen to good robots? Like, I really feel like he's trying to like get in touch with something and covering it. Maybe Scott's Pharaoh to him. I don't know.
Well, I'll just point out that T-Bob is not a good robot, so bad things happen to bad robots too. And good things happen to bad robots.
He does take on like religious iconography very easily for indigenous cultures.
He does.
And also, there's still questions about whether he is alive or not.
Well, Scott doesn't think he is, that's for sure. Speaking of, Scott and T-Bob get stuck in a deep mud puddle. Jackhammer is going to run them over, but Cliff clearly doesn't want to hurt them, and he's honking his horn, like, "Hey, get out of the road."
You know, he's hilarious because you'd think he's like a New York City taxi driver by the way he drives, because he's honking. Yeah. He's mildly concerned, but he also seems okay if he ran over a kid.
He's got somewhere to go.
Right, exactly. He's like, I don't want to run you over, but I'm not going to stop because I got someplace to be.
Scott manages to free himself and somehow uses superhuman strength to pull T-Bob out. Like, maybe your idea that Scott has like adamantium bones is right after all.
Yeah, I thought through this one. And so the adamantium bones is still on the table. But after last episode, we know that Scott couldn't pull Matt by himself.
Right.
So maybe Scott went on a strict weight training regimen to really build some muscles.
Maybe.
But since we also know he couldn't do that naturally, he also acquired some anabolic steroids to like help him along. And that's like how he's able to achieve this feat with T-Bob this time.
Very 80s of you, Scott. Maybe after the mission from last episode, and Scott did the debrief and said, "I needed T-Bob's help to drag you out of danger," Matt said, "Not going to let that happen again. Take these special pills, Scott. You'll feel super strong."
Here's Darbon and a fish paralyzer.
always looking out for his best interests, Matt. Well, Mask shows up, and we begin the mid-episode battle versus Venom. And everything seems to be going Mask's way until Firecracker gets hit with the same red beam that the train got hit with at the beginning of the episode. And Firecracker starts getting crushed. And Hondo tries to use Blaster to get out, but it's no use. He's going to be crushed to death.
This is fucking insane when you step back and think about this. Like, there's real danger here. Yeah. He does make another dad joke, which is, "I'm in one bad squeeze play." Come on, Hondo. But, like, there's real stakes here. I mean, like, this is really serious stuff.
This is not good. And it leads to the question, what's going to happen?
I don't know.
We'll find out after these messages.
We've got him in sight. Hold on. Mask will be right back. Now watch what Mask does.
We are back. When we left you, Hondo was about to be crushed inside Firecracker, entombed for all eternity in that which was supposed to make him powerful. The irony is thick and sad. Hondo is dead.
No. Hey, I have a question. So, like, as kids, part of the cartoon's job was, this is how you play with those toys, right? So it's like you have Switchblade and Thunderhawk in the sky, and you're zoom, zoom. How many kids emulating the cartoon this time took a rock and just crushed Firecracker to emulate the show?
100%. Absolutely. Mom, I need a new one now. Well, the next scene of Hondo's funeral is just kidding. Thunderhawk shows up, discovers the beam is coming from Switchblade. He distracts Miles with a few missiles, giving Hondo a chance to escape.
So before we get to like the saving moment,
Yeah.
how fucking dedicated was Miles to destroying Firecracker? Like last episode, Blackout fired a beam that seemed like it took out Matt and it did knock him unconscious, but Miles basically did the Dr. Evil thing and just assumed, oh, it's fine, he's dead, and it all went to plan.
Right.
This time, Miles wants to be sure.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, man, do you think it's because he knows that Hondo is actually one of the real threats to Venom and just wants to make sure he's dead?
That, I also think Miles is a racist.
All right. Double.
So this might actually be a Buddy Hawks nomination.
This might be a Buddy Hawks nomination. All right. Strength-wise, like you have this one shot where this gravity beam is crushing a metal car. And Hondo like lifts his hand outside to try. Yeah. How strong is he?
Yeah. Oh, he's very strong to push back against that gravity beam.
And getting onto that, so right before he fires the missiles, Thunderhawk's lasers are used to try and hit it, and they're bent by the gravity beam.
Is that possible?
Well, let's go over to Science Corner and talk about this.
Let's go.
Can gravity alter the course of light? And the answer actually is yes. While photons don't have any rest mass to them, I mean, they're massless particles, they do have like a measured momentum. And so you have this kind of weird mass equivalency to them. And that means you can do cool stuff with it. Like you can have solar sails that are basically propelled by light and light alone. Okay. And it also means that gravity does in fact affect light. But to get a sense of that, like you're talking about a gravity well the size of a star or a black hole bending light over huge distances. And I mean like astronomical units, like the distance between, like we're talking huge. So to have that kind of like abrupt change where it just kind of suddenly goes down means there's an amazingly powerful gravitational pull going on there. But then you start to get to other problems, like time gets affected. Right. So like when you have massive objects, time starts to pass slower for the person on the massive object. And then it would also start to move the Earth in weird ways, probably bad ones. And the missile explosion would not actually be able to hit Miles because if you can move something with no rest mass, you have zero problems with an object that has actual mass.
Yeah.
So we're in space magic territory right now.
Meanwhile, T-Bob is running for his life, abandoning all reason and Scott for that matter. But he gets hit with a gravity beam, and we watch horrified as T-Bob gets crushed just like Firecracker. Now, for me, man, this was a really difficult scene to watch as an adult. I cannot imagine how I felt watching it as a kid.
If you listen to the sound that T-Bob makes, it will haunt my dreams forever.
It's awful. It's the most legitimately horrific moment I've seen in this series so far, where I was really affected by it.
Yeah, it's pretty horrifying. I mean, it's like he again kind of looks a lot like the robot from the Disney's The Black Hole, maybe a little bit more so at this point in time, like the damaged one. But it's pretty horrifying.
It is. Miles turns the gravity beam on Thunderhawk, and all it does is force Matt to land Thunderhawk on its tail. And Matt says, I think my day is starting to go downhill.
I think all of these folks basically on Mask just are not emotionally equipped to deal with the life and death situations they contend with. And so like they use all of this corny humor to try and like allay their true feelings of fear.
Now, Matt, Scott, and Hondo are all okay, but T-Bob comes waddling over to them in his crushed state and says, I'm glad everyone is okay. I feel like a garbage lid. And this continues to be very disturbing, like just watching him. And it's just horrifying.
It is. But a second later, he's okay inside of Thunderhawk.
How? Like that? Is that a continuity? That's got to be a continuity thing, right?
I suspect basically this is an animation noting problem. I think they said, hey, Matt's in the driver's seat, Hondo's in the passenger seat, and then Scott and T-Bob are in the back seat. And they just neglected to be like, oh yeah, it's damaged T-Bob. So
right. Well, Matt calls up the masked computer, and it is the agent selection scene. First up is Bruce Sato, invented mechanical skills essential. Let's see about that. Bruce is riding on a boat. No telling how far offshore they are, by the way. But when he gets the call, he just dives into the water and swims away, however many miles they are. Because this is a big boat. This is not a little like dinghy. They're out somewhere, so he's going to swim miles to shore.
Yeah, I was thinking this was a ferry of some sort. Imagine, like, there's a whole bunch of onlookers who are watching Bruce jump off this. So how scared is everyone else at seeing this guy apparently commit suicide?
100%. But even, I mean, obviously he's not committing suicide, but he's going to be pretty darn tired by the time he swims wherever he's going. How useful is he really going to be on a mission? It would seem to be like, just let the boat get to wherever it's going. If it's a ferry, just get to wherever it's going and then figure out your way from the other shore. This makes no sense at all. Number 2 on the team, Alex Sector. Broad base scientific knowledge needed. We'll see about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's taken a bath, a big old bubble bath. He's even got a pillow in the tub. It's very bizarre. So he gets the call and he jumps out totally naked. Now, the suds do cover the private parts, but it still feels somewhat inappropriate for a kid's show.
It does, and the bathroom itself's kind of weird. So
Oh yeah, it is weird.
It is weird because like there's a giant shower curtain that's like way outside the tub. So like
a hospital or something.
like or it's at his where he keeps the animals, and this is normally where he bathes the animals.
Sure. Yep. I think you're right about that. Yep.
So he also has complete disregard for the book he's reading. He just like tosses it to the side.
What do you think the book was?
I think it was How to Treat Animals Well. Like he really wanted to like lean into this.
But he will never read it. Next up on the team, Gloria Baker, champion race driver, black belt in Kung Fu, team hottie, Matt's wife. Driving skills and shark's weapons may be of value. I like how the computer conditions it.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe of value. Mostly, though, Matt wants you there.
Well, the prosecution is going to recall that earlier scene.
Okay.
I think the computer was like, also, Matt, I heard an exchange between you and Hondo regarding marriage, so I think it's important for Gloria to come along to remind you that you are married now.
So Gloria's teaching a Kung Fu class, and then she gets the call and just runs away.
Everyone's in complete shock. And do you think there's something here where they interpreted that she's just failed their entire class?
I still can't get over this woman is a champion race driver and a black belt in Kung Fu. So she races cars for a living. She also has a side hustle as a Kung Fu instructor at the dojo. And she happens to be part of a rogue paramilitary group.
I mean,
run by her husband.
She's an adrenaline junkie. I mean,
well, the whole team is gathered at Boulder Hill. Of course, not Matt or Hondo. And Matt's briefing the team via the video link. And his face is huge on this giant screen. I mean, this seems to be how he wants to be treated. I think like the Wizard of Oz.
Or Big Brother.
Yeah.
And here's a question I had for you. We're all very well versed on Zoom and all sorts of video technologies. Where's the opposing camera situated where he sees them? Because if it's at the level of the table, then they're all looking up at him, and maybe he wants that kind of adoration. Or if it's from the vantage that Matt is displaying there, they all seem really small.
Either way, it's what Matt wants. So, having been fully briefed, Alex says, "Sounds like a matter of some gravity, Matt." And Gloria responds, "Oh, you've been hanging around T-Bob too much, Alex."
Do you think Gloria is saying that this dad joke thing that Alex has is devolved to T-Bob level of communication?
Man, at least Gloria's not on board with it.
Yeah.
She's just fed up with it.
It's like, come on.
So they go into the radiation chamber of death, get their helmets, and away we go. We're on the case, and Alex is investigating one of the crystals. He's trying to drill through it, but the drill bit snaps and says, "This is the hardest substance I've ever seen."
I really wanted Gloria to chime in and say something like, "You mean besides Matt's dick?"
Well, she loves him.
She does. She does.
Well, finding no answers, Matt takes to the sky to scan for the gravity beam. Meanwhile, back at what looks like a mansion, so maybe Matt owns another property in Pennsylvania. He probably does. Scott is hammering T-Bob's body back into shape. Now, in the animation, they make a point not to show T-Bob without his body. Like, what do you think they're hiding under there?
T-Bob's giant dong, his robotic dong.
Why would Scott install that in T-Bob?
To have a full-featured life.
Okay.
Regarding the mansion, I think they bought it from the Duke brothers, who were made paupers in Trading Places. So, which came out in '83, so that gives enough time for Matt to kind of swoop in and like, oh, this is nice.
For sure. Well, now that he's fixed, T-Bob and Scott head off to the Philadelphia Mint, and they're taking a tour. Suddenly, T-Bob senses the gravity beam again.
So I want to pause on their tour of the Mint because, you know, the reason that Scott's going to Mint is that he wants to start working on a report, which means that he's pretty conscientious about his schoolwork.
Right.
And Matt never asks about it.
No.
T-Bob makes the whole, like, you know, dumb dad joke, spearmint or peppermint. And I feel like Scott would just be like, fuck you, T-Bob. But then when they're actually watching the coins being minted, T-Bob says, if I had all of those, I could nickel and dime people to death.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was like, this is a Roy Batty moment, right? He's talking about actively murdering people. And Scott's reply is like, if you don't stop those puns, I'm going to confine you to quarters. And I'm like, what's the pun that T-Bob said, Scott? He's talking about murdering people. Like,
well, Matt picks up the gravity weapon in Philadelphia and they all roll out. But back at the Mint, you know, T-Bob having picked up on the gravity ray in the area, T-Bob, he runs outside the Mint and he once again gets very disturbingly crushed by the gravity beam. And Scott is standing at the door of the Mint. He sees what's happened to T-Bob and then he turns back and he hides. Like,
nope.
Way to save your friend there, Scott.
To be fair, the gravity gun would have mushed Scott. He might be strung out on steroids, but he's not Hondo strong, okay?
Well, Venom is indeed robbing the Mint. So while the gravity weapon is, you know, causing havoc in the front door, Venom's stealing coins through the back door. And so this goes back to my point earlier. This gravity weapon that seems to defy time and space seems to play no part in robbing the Mint, however. Am I wrong about that?
I mean, it is super underutilized. I was trying hard to defend the writers to earn a writer's defense fund here. There's cracks in the concrete, so maybe it was used to crack the walls. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was used to shape the crystal shielding we're about to see. But it's also, it's all standard fare. It's like not utilized at all. No. Like, why not pick up the coins using the gravity gun?
Yeah, well, that's what they got vacuums for.
Giant vacuums from Vegas.
That would be like Sly's thing. Mayhem. Why don't we just use the gravity ray to... You idiot. It only crushes things. It doesn't pick things up. I didn't spend money on all those vacuums to use a gravity ray to pick things up. By the way, Cliff and Vanessa are the ones who are, you know, extracting the money. And Cliff says, this is great. Nobody can touch us. And Vanessa says, no one would want to touch you, Dagger. Whoa.
It's so brutal. I have to believe that Cliff engages in therapy just for the help for the abuse he takes on a regular basis.
Well, but I can see him complain to HR about Vanessa. And they're like, look, we hear you, but she's the most competent agent we have. We can't really do anything about it. So you can either file a formal complaint, and you know how that's going to go. You can put up with it, or you can quit. The choice is really yours. But for a one-eyed terrorist, it's going to be hard finding a new job. Well, here comes Mask, and they engage Venom. But Jackhammer and Manta are covered in that crystal shield you mentioned, and it makes their lasers useless.
Yep.
So for an organization whose whole offensive platform is built on lasers, this is a bad thing for Mask.
Yeah.
Venom jacks up Mask in a major way. Thunderhawk gets one of its doors shot off. Rhino's battering ram gets destroyed. And Matt says, this is embarrassing, Alex. Any ideas? Giving credence to the theory that Matt only cares about appearances, not whether they win or lose.
It's true. I mean, this is a credible threat from Venom, but you're right, 100%. Matt only cares about looking good. And it shows off in what the teams talks about too. Because like Hondo's like, this isn't looking good. And Bruce responds with, when did Venom look good?
Yeah, it's not whether we win or lose. It's whether we look good doing whatever we're doing.
Right. It's like, we know we look good. That's what matters. After Rhino's battering ram gets chewed off, Hondo says, better do something, Bruce, or she'll be in here with us. And all I can think about is like, we know Bruce wouldn't mind having Vanessa in there.
Yeah. He's like, oh, yes, must do something.
And he does do something.
He does.
Yeah, he actually does a really cool maneuver that sends both Manta and Rhino flying. I mean, like, he does this kind of like reversing, which is kind of hard with a big rig. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But who's not impressed, Adam?
Yeah, Hondo is not impressed.
He's like, I'd rate that move a 5. And how much is Hondo shitting on Bruce's driving?
Oh, no, seriously. I mean, you try to do that with a big rig, Hondo. Speaking of great work, though, Gloria is doing some real good work with Aura, sending Vanessa flying over Shark. Meanwhile, Alex figures out that the crystal shields have a weak point. The target area is only 2 meters wide. It's a small thermal exhaust port right below the main port.
That's impossible, even for a computer. That's Wedge's response. Gloria fucking doesn't flinch.
Yeah, she does some sharpshooting, firing a Bolo-type device at each of the Venom vehicles, cracking the crystal shields.
Not just for Manta, but she does it for Jackhammer as well.
Yeah, and after knocking out Jackhammer and Manta, Mask reconnects to figure out a plan to defeat the gravity weapon. Bruce says, the ugly one cannot bear to see its own face. Mask knows what he's saying right away, but I have no idea what he means.
I mean, I was wondering, basically, it's like, oh, like, are we saying that someone should accept their inner beauty in order to like accept themselves fully? Because I really feel like that's where that should have gone.
No, I think Bruce is not commenting on the mission. I think he's working through something with the whole Vanessa getting into the cabin and Hondo there and the way he dissed him. And so I actually think it's a complete non sequitur for Bruce, but Matt thinks he's saying something about the mission.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, by the way, the plan is pretty good. Thunderhawk and Rhino sit there as bait while Gloria sneaks up behind and fires Aura at the beam weapon, causing it to turn back on Switchblade. Switchblade crashes. We've got a great Ragdoll Award nominee here.
Yep.
And it gets crushed by the gravity beam.
Yeah. I kind of wondered, because like it didn't seem like Rhino and Thunderhawk were getting crushed. So I actually wondered if they were actually being picked up. Like the animation is a little bit dodgy that I couldn't quite tell one way or another, because you'd expect to see like, you know, some stressors on those vehicles.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But Miles runs away and he's like really huffing and puffing. Like he's out of shape. Then he climbs into Manta and escapes.
Miles, you got to do more cardio and lay off the sugar.
Yeah.
I do not care how many fat-free snacks you think you're having. You're going to have a coronary.
Well, with Venom defeated, Mask gathers and Scott rolls a crushed T-Bob over to the team. And Matt says, hi, Scott. Taking T-Bob out for a spin? I mean, just Roy Batty nominations all over the place in this episode. And also, T-Bob's response is, cut the cracks. When I heard it the first time, it really sounded like cut the crap, which is exactly what T-Bob should be saying.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, stop the shit, guys. Fix me up. Don't be dicks.
Just wait till you go to sleep at night. Well, back at Boulder Hill, Matt and Hondo pull up in Thunderhawk. And Hondo says, Matt, I really have to get going. I got classes to teach, you know. And Matt knows Hondo. You barely teach as it is.
Wait a second. So this is my thing. Like, the shot is clearly taken at sunset.
Yeah.
Like it's a gorgeous orange, yellow background.
Yeah.
So what class is he teaching? Is he teaching night school? Did they just get back from Philly to Colorado and Thunderhawk has its wing fixed?
Yeah, a lot of time has passed. We didn't do any time checks in this episode, but clearly they have also broken the laws of space and time here.
I mean, getting between Colorado and Philly is probably a 4 or 5 hour flight.
Yeah, I mean, if Thunderhawk can, I think we've established, can go multiple times the speed of sound.
Yeah, Thunderhawk could do it. I wonder if like they had the jet though have to go back and forth.
Oh, sure.
Because Firecracker was there.
Well, but it turns out that we're all gathered at Boulder Hill for the big unveiling of Hurricane. The whole team is there, by the way. Every single member of Mask is there, but they don't have any dialogue. And they unveil this 57 Chevy that transforms into a tank. Now, they do call it Night Stalker here. But Hondo, when he watches it transform, he's just speechless. And he almost cries here. And he says, I don't know what to say. Yes, I do. Thanks, Matt. And I love that Hondo is speechless with emotion over a weapon of mass destruction. Like, that is Hondo.
I'll be able to kill so many more people now, Matt. Yeah, it's a pretty emotional scene right here. It's interesting because like he is so much more appreciative of the new vehicle. Like he doesn't seem like he's that broken up over Firecracker. But this is actually a really big thing, is that this is like a new toy and it's a consequential change to the series.
Right.
So,
well, and it's interesting too that it's a replacement. They didn't do that for any of the other toys necessarily. They were introduced with new characters or in a future season. This is the one and only time where a toy is purposely destroyed in the show and replaced with a new toy. So it's a weird decision.
It is. I mean, in second season, a lot of characters have new vehicles.
Sure.
And it is really interesting because like they've been telegraphing this since the very first, the opening credits of the first episode. So yeah, it's fascinating because like, it's an actual change. The one thing I'm really grateful for the cartoon show is that I never liked Hondo's armor in Hurricane. The purple and yellow, like disco wear.
Yeah.
like I kind of dig that he keeps kind of the jumpsuit or the kind of like the adventure wear he's got going on.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, Matt had a Chevy Bel Air 57 car converted into a tank.
Makes sense. American steel can slice through anything like a knife through butter.
Yes, I agree.
So I have a question. Why was Night Stalker renamed to Hurricane?
So I did a little research on this one because I was wondering about this, and I had heard two theories, and I actually think both of them are actually true. So let's get the corporate one out of the way. So Night Stalker was a name that was owned by Mattel. So it actually is like Skeletor's robotic purple horse. That is the name of it. So Kenner actually had to change it from a corporate perspective. So they didn't.
Yep.
It was probably fine for the cartoon because I don't think you can copyright it that way, but I think it was not okay for the toy. And so if you want to keep those in sync, that's why it's Night Stalker for a few episodes and then flips to Hurricane.
It's interesting how out of sync though that the show was with the corporate entity.
Now, I said there were two theories about Night Stalker.
Right.
And this one, let me be very honest. I recommend people not research. I mean, look, you can find this very easily on Wikipedia. I recommend you not read this article. Okay. But the reality is from April of 84 to August of 85, there was a name named Richard Ramirez, who was a serial killer and rapist in the LA and San Francisco areas, who was nicknamed the Night Stalker. And it really begged the question for me, why was either of these toys ever named Night Stalker?
Right.
Because it's like very clearly like in the time when you're kind of like formulating a lot of this stuff. And it
was in the news. I mean, it was clearly in the news as they're writing this. And someone said, oh, we should call this Night Stalker.
And it wasn't as if they're writing this series in like Ontario. Or maybe they are. Actually, maybe that's the issue. Is that what if they're not writing this thing in LA? Because like if you're in the LA area, you probably aren't naming a character the Night Stalker.
No. Something we've established, however, for both of us is that Hurricane is like one of the best toys in the entire series.
Easily. Super great transformation. Everything about it was just a cool concept.
Yeah, I love that toy.
In terms of just like, if you think about like, what vehicle do you want to be in? Pound for pound, probably tougher than Rhino. It's a as cool, if not cooler transformation than Switchblade. And like, it's a literal tank. I mean, it's an awesome toy to play with.
It's great.
Does the name Hurricane actually fit this thing?
Yeah, I find that really interesting. Like, there's nothing Hurricane about it. It doesn't swirl around.
I mean, it's a replacement name, but then again, does Night Stalker? I mean, the vehicle's painted neon blue, which would easily show up at night.
With flames, with
flames. I mean, I was trying to think of some alternate names, and I feel like Firestorm would have been great, except that's a DC character.
Yeah.
Juggernaut would be great, except that's a Marvel character.
True.
Or Blue Steel.
Which is what Hondo wanted to call it. That's what they call him sometimes. But anyways, it's a great day for everyone. Hurricane is introduced, and we cut to the more you know. Now, Scott is cooking for Matt, for himself, because no one else will cook for him. But a fork gets stuck in the garbage disposal, and T-Bob goes to reach his hand in to get it, but Scott stops him. The lesson being, don't stick your hand in a garbage disposal. But if not T-Bob, then who should be getting the fork?
I mean, I think a running garbage disposal is what they meant, and they were kind of because otherwise it's like there's a fork down there. I was told not to get it, but it's off. Nope. Nope. Never put your hand in the garbage disposal.
Yeah, it's like mom comes home and there's like 3 spoons and a fork just sitting there in the garbage disposal. Like, why didn't you get these out? Well, because I learned on Mask that I'm not supposed to reach my hand into a garbage disposal. There might be some other stuff in there too. I think T-Bob and Scott also ended up down there when I was playing Mask in the kitchen. Sorry, Mom.
You think Matt would have a chef?
Oh, he definitely has one.
Just doesn't let him.
Yeah, he has one.
He and Gloria get magnificent meals cooked for them all the time.
Yeah. Scott's making Kraft macaroni and cheese. Well, let's look at the skills. Bruce Sato was brought into the team for his inventive mechanical skills. Did he use them?
You mean when he very obscurely told them to face the gravity gun 2 miles? I couldn't think of any other thing because, he doesn't use lifter. He does that cool driving thing, but that wasn't why he was brought on board.
No.
D minus as far as I'm concerned.
Very well. Now, Alex Sector is brought on for his broad-based scientific knowledge.
Well, he did come up with the hit the crystal in this spot thingy.
Yeah, he did.
So,
that's useful.
Yeah, solid B plus.
And then Gloria was brought into the team for driving skills and Shark's weapons may be of value.
I love how the computer was the least certain out of all of them, but without Gloria, the rest of the team would in fact be dead.
Right.
So
Completely.
It's Gloria's crack shots with both Aura and Shark's Bola and driving that saved the day. So
yep.
A plus.
A plus. Well done. So looking at our awards here, Father of the Year, what do you got?
As always, it's kind of hard because there's a lot of stuff that's off screen, like Scott, go to the mansion and just keep to yourself. But I kind of thought Matt telling Scott to go back through the woods of Pennsylvania to the crash site of the train was my Father of the Year award.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And just also Scott being allowed to go off to the mint and all these other things. Once again, there's a terrorist organization at large.
Right.
In and around Philadelphia.
Right.
Maybe send him home. So the Slyrax Ragdoll Award, what do you got?
I kind of thought Miles with crashing Switchblade. Again, Hondo was able to kind of get out of his situation, but Miles comes crashing down and should just be dead.
Yeah, I agree. I think also T-Bob getting squashed twice kind of could be a Ragdoll Award, though he is not alive as we know, so it doesn't really count. So I agree with you in terms of Miles there. Now, the Buddy Hawks Award, what do you think?
I didn't have one, but I guess it really depends upon what you said earlier. If you think that Miles was being racially motivated, I thought it was a skills thing, whereas I try to kill the most effective mask agent. But sure. I can understand if you think it's actually, there's some underlying racism there.
I mean, get one look at Miles. I think he certainly could have some racial bias. I mean, also look at his team.
It's true, but I will point out we have awarded far more Buddy Hawks awards to Mask, including to Hondo himself, than we have to Venom. Okay, so
it's true.
It's there's a balance of that's here, and that's why I'm not sure.
All right, well, we'll leave that one unfilled for this episode. Roy Batty moment. Oh my goodness, so many to choose from.
It's replete with Roy Batty moments. My pick was when he actually threatened death to people with nickels and dimes in the mint. That felt really on point. That it's okay, well, you just said you wanted to murder people.
Your goal has become clear now.
Kill.
Yep. So what do we think? Is this episode Panda Poo?
I don't think so. I mean, it's we're back to the the underutilized tech trope.
Oh, so underutilized.
Yeah. But it is like a really consequential episode. In fact, arguably the most consequential episode to date that's sort of in the canon and not us sort of hunting around the edges, not Panda Poo.
All right. Well, that is it for episode 29. Next up is episode 30, The Lost Riches of Rio. Get a load of this. I love this log line. Venom steals a worthless painting. I would have just ended at that. That's it. Because that is Miles' MO. I'm going to steal this painting. How much is it worth? Nothing. But it gets even better. Venom steals a worthless painting, but Mask learns it really contains a secret map to lost Nazi treasure. We're back with the Nazis.
So I think it's what's funny. So I watched this episode without having read the tagline.
Uh-huh.
And so I actually went into it not knowing like what was to come. Yeah. And so in the middle of the episode, I get surprised all of a sudden, like, whoa, it feels like a little bit unexpected, like in the middle of the episode. And it's kind of the first time, like, again, we've talked about like how they kind of dance around like these German scientists in South America, the billionaire who's trying to buy the dinosaur blood. We had the guy who is unfreezing people. But this is where it's like straight up on point. And it's super interesting because, again, it's like talks about the milieu of the time where it was like this was like okay in a children's cartoon. And you probably wouldn't expect it today.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. But for now, this podcast has to transform and head back to HQ. I am Adam Moore.
And I am PJ McNerney.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Mobile Armored Podcast Show is written, produced, and edited by Adam Moore and PJ McNerney.